3 bright young women vanished after a night out. But what investigators found next would ignite fury across a nation. On April 4, 2023, 3 close friends, Denise Raina, Juliana Masías, and Naeli Tapia, left Santo Domingo, Ecuador, for what was meant to be a short beach trip to Casablanca in the Esmeraldas province. None of them would return. Denise, 19, was studying veterinary medicine. She cared for stray animals and dreamed of opening her own clinic. Juliana, 21, had recently graduated from the Xyla Institute in Transportation Engineering. She was the class valedictorian and an aspiring singer who performed under the name Syria. Naeli, 22, was a young mother juggling modeling work and caring for her 4-year-old daughter. They had been friends for years. Their chat group was active daily. They shared ambitions, family updates, and plans for the future. When an acquaintance named Luis Fernando Vaca, a friend of Denise, proposed a quick getaway to the coast, the idea sounded simple. A few days near the sea, daytime travel, return by the weekend. To make it clearer, Vaca encouraged Denise to bring her friends. Denise consulted Juliana and Naeli, discussed dates, costs, transport, and agreed that all 3 would travel together. Nothing sounded unusual. The chosen destination, Casablanca Beach, was popular and safe. The plan was to leave Santo Domingo in the evening after finishing errands. At about 7 p.m. on April 4th, Vaca arrived in a rented black Chevrolet Sail. Denise and Naeli joined him first and then picked up Juliana. A second vehicle, driven by Holger Zambrano and his brother Andre Zambrano, along with their associate Amar Ardanos, was heading in the same direction. The trip began normally. The 2 cars were seen several times along the main highway linking Santo Domingo to the coast. Around 11 p.m., however, subtle signs of danger appeared. Denise sent a text to a friend, "I have a bad feeling." Around the same time, Naeli shared her real-time phone location with her sister. The dot on the map moved steadily west until it left the main highway and turned onto a rural back road. Within minutes, the signal went dark. Those were the last digital traces from the 3 friends. The following morning, their families expected a simple message confirming their arrival at Casablanca. No message came. Calls went straight to voicemail. By midday, April 5th, relatives were contacting one another, checking with friends, and retracing the route from Santo Domingo toward Esmeraldas. Naeli's sister reviewed the previous night's location data and saw the last update stop abruptly 50 kilometers from the coast. It never resumed. Each family filed a missing person report that afternoon. Attorney Paulina Rueda, Juliana's aunt, submitted the official paperwork to Ecuador's National Police. The case was classified as urgent. Alerts went to roadside checkpoints and hospitals along the route. Social media posts with photos and emergency numbers spread rapidly across the country. Volunteers began monitoring incoming tips and building a timeline based on verified messages and calls. By April 6th, investigators had lists of dates, times, and the women's last known locations. Late that evening, there were still no sightings. The rental Chevrolet was unaccounted for. Police extended searches to rural areas along the secondary road marked by Naeli's final GPS ping. On April 7th, fishermen working along the Esmeraldas River noticed a dog digging near a patch of brush. When they checked, they found a partially buried human body. Police responded immediately and uncovered 2 more bodies nearby. All 3 victims were female, their hands bound, mouths covered with tape, clothing consistent with beach attire. Forensic specialists confirmed multiple sharp force and blunt force injuries. The pattern of wounds indicated prolonged physical assault. Cause of death for each was deep neck trauma, consistent with cuts from a heavy blade. Defensive wounds on Denise's hands suggested she had tried to fight back. The bodies were transported to the Santo Domingo morgue for identification. Families were called in, and despite severe disfigurement from the injuries, physical markers and tattoos confirmed their identities. Denise Raina, Juliana Masías, and Naeli Tapia had been murdered. Autopsy reports described meticulous brutality, binding marks, bruises, stab wounds, and signs of torture. The forensic timeline placed death on the night of April 4th between 11 p.m. and midnight, the very window when their phones went silent. Investigators compared that time frame to Naeli's final location data. The GPS coordinates matched almost exactly with the river area where the bodies were recovered. The night the signal stopped, the Chevrolet had left the highway near that zone. Attention turned to the vehicles. Through surveillance footage from roadside businesses, police identified a black Chevrolet Sail followed closely by another car. The first matched the description of the rental driven by Vaca. The second belonged to the Zambrano brothers and Arnaz. Both cars left the main highway near Quininde, close to the Esmeraldas River, and never reappeared on cameras afterward. Rental records showed the Chevrolet had been leased under Holger Zambrano's name days before the trip. He told the agency he needed it for a coastal vacation and scheduled a return the following week. That link placed both Zambrano brothers and Vaca within the same circle of coordination. When the vehicle was later located in Santo Domingo, investigators found traces of blood and fibers inside the trunk and passenger seats. Luminal testing revealed biological material in several areas, and one fingernail fragment lodged near the dashboard. Genetic analysis matched it to Denise Raina. The forensic team concluded the killings had occurred inside or around the car, not at the burial site, suggesting the riverbank was only used to hide the bodies afterward. As physical evidence mounted, police centered on 4 suspects: Luis Fernando Vaca, who organized and drove the women; Holger Zambrano, who rented the car; Andres Zambrano, who traveled in the second vehicle; and Amar Ardanos, an associate with a prior record for weapons offenses. Investigators reconstructed the route and communication logs between the 2 cars. Messages exchanged that evening showed coordination on meeting points and timing. Witnesses said both cars stopped near gas stations before veering off toward the interior roads. The prosecution developed 2 main hypotheses. First theory: a confrontation and violent outburst triggered by coercion or rejection, that the women resisted unwanted attention and were attacked as a result. Second theory: deliberate premeditation, the route diversion, second vehicle, burial site preparation, and later cleaning of the car suggested planning. Foreclosure of either motive required more evidence, but what was clear was coordination among all 4 men. By the end of May 2023, arrest warrants were issued. Police captured Holger and Andres Zambrano near Ecuador's southern border as they attempted to cross into Peru. Their detainment confirmed fears they were fleeing prosecution. Each man was charged with qualified homicide and obstruction of justice. A few weeks later, a new twist complicated the case. The decomposed remains of Luis Fernando Vaca were discovered in Chimborazo province, hundreds of kilometers away. He had been killed, dismembered, and buried anonymously. Forensic timing placed his death shortly after the women's disappearance. Investigators suspected internal retaliation, meant to silence potential testimony. That development shifted suspicion toward the remaining suspects and suggested broader involvement, possibly a criminal network. Authorities traced communications between Ardanos and contacts linked to a local gang known for arms trafficking. Throughout 2023, family lawyer Paulina Rueda demanded expanded investigation and reclassification of the case as femicide, arguing the murders were rooted in gender-based violence. Prosecutors countered that legal definition required an existing romantic or familial relationship, which was absent here. They labeled the charges homicide. Advocates denounced the decision as minimizing the motive. Demonstrations took place in Santo Domingo, Quito, and Esmeraldas, urging recognition that hate or gender contempt could exist without romantic ties. In November 2023, police finally arrested Amr Ardanos after months in hiding. Charges connected him directly through coordinated movement data and forensic evidence from both vehicles. His past convictions for illegal firearm possession and his gang connections reinforced the claim that the crime had been organized. With all primary suspects in custody or deceased, prosecutors prepared the formal indictment. Evidence included forensic reports of biological traces inside the Chevrolet sale, GPS and phone data confirming the convoy's synchronized path, surveillance videos along the route, witness identifications, and expert testimony on trauma patterns. On April 9, 2024, the first trial opened in Esmeralda's provincial court. Defendants: Andre Zambrano and Omar Ardanos. A separate proceeding assessed Holger Zambrano's role in renting the car. During the hearings, prosecutors outlined how the route change, the isolation of the site, and the discovery of the blood-stained car formed a consistent sequence connecting defendants to the murders. Witnesses included rental company employees and people who had seen the cars traveling together that night. Defense attorneys attempted to shift blame entirely onto the late Luis Vaca, claiming he had acted alone and that their clients were unaware of his intentions. They filed motions to exclude surveillance footage and biological samples, alleging improper chain of custody. The court denied these motions after verifying proper forensic handling. For Holger Zambrano, the court concluded that evidence established only his administrative role in renting the car, but not his physical presence during the killings. He was acquitted of murder charges, but remained under investigation for obstruction. On May 17, 2024, judges rendered the main verdict. Andres Zambrano and Omar Ardanos were found guilty of homicide and sentenced to 34 years and 8 months in prison. The ruling cited the forensic consistency between car evidence, GPS data, and coordinated actions. Despite the convictions, the victims' families declared the outcome incomplete. In their view, the downgraded charge of homicide ignored clear gender-based motivation. They continued to advocate for legal reforms, distinguishing violence against women even outside intimate relationships. Attorney Paulina Rueda's pursuit of expanded inquiry did not end at sentencing. She submitted new filings seeking to identify any individuals who might have aided the suspects or destroyed evidence. Her public statements attracted increasing hostility. In June 2024, Rueda reported being followed and photographed near her home. In July, she began receiving threatening calls and messages. She notified authorities, but no protective action followed. On August 5th, her teenage son was found dead. Police described it as a domestic incident. However, the family insisted it was retaliation related to the triple murder case. Weeks later, Rueda herself disappeared. 2 days after her disappearance, she was located alive in the Tesagua area of Manabí province, treated for exhaustion and minor injuries. She refused to discuss details publicly, but investigators confirmed she had been abducted and later released. Her family stated the motive was intimidation tied to her legal advocacy. The government never revealed who orchestrated the abduction, and no arrests were made. The event deepened fears that the network behind the murders reached further than the convicted men. By early 2025, 2 years after the discovery along the Esmeraldas River, relatives organized a private memorial at the site. A simple stone with etched names, Denise Raina, Juliana Masías, Naeli Tapia, marks the place. Activists gather annually, tying white ribbons and lighting candles. The ritual is both mourning and protest. Each year they repeat the same demand: comprehensive justice, full recognition of gender-based violence, and accountability for threats against those pursuing the case. In the record books, the case of the 3 Santo Domingo friends is labeled closed. 2 perpetrators are serving long sentences. The primary organizer is dead. Yet for the families, closure remains out of reach. Key questions linger. Was the attack spontaneous or planned? Were additional participants involved? Who silenced Luis Vaca and why? Beyond the legal conclusions, the story exposed systemic weaknesses, delays in police response, misclassification of crimes, and limited protection for victims' counsel. It transformed into a national conversation about how justice defines motive and whose voices receive protection. What began as a casual trip among trusted companions ended as one of the most notorious crimes in Ecuador's modern history. If this case has moved you, please like the video. And if you want to see more true crime stories like this, don't forget to subscribe our channel. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.